Hello everyone, I'm a Metaslave and welcome to Chapter 24 of my FE6 RR LTC. The first thing that needs to be done in this hilariously long chapter, in which I must seize 7 thrones, is to use a 15-move unit with a 2-range dragon-killing weapon, such as Dian with Murglaze over here, to kill that first throne's occupant. Now, since Corel is a free turn, he takes a boots and is now fully at 15 move. And because he gets danced, he can now seize the first one. The rest of the units now have to prepare for seizing the second throne next turn. First, Milady moves right next to Zeiss so that Zeiss can rescue drop her. Zeiss needs to pick up Milady since Milady cannot pick him up. Now I sleep this Manakee because I can deal with being with 1 Manakee active and attacking my dancers, but I cannot deal with 2. The dancers, it's best for the dancers to remain next to each other since they have unequal move. And for Lalum to be exactly 1 tile behind Elfin, like relative to where I want to go, then she can still full move and still be danced for Elfin. Or by Elfin, sorry. Yoder moves and takes another pair of his last pair of boots. And I burned these RNs so that Lalum dodges this Manakee. She was in range of that other one as well, which would be pretty hard to deal with, but that's why I put that one to sleep. Zeiss dropped Milady in range so that she could enemy phase that Manakee. And now he's going to deal with this Manakee, occupying the second throne. Now I need to burn more RNs for a Purge crit from Yoder. He will kill that Manakee that is to the left of the throne to open the path on that square. He stops there because he needs to be in range of being danced. And you're about to see why. So again, Lalum can full move and reach him, and now Elfin can reach Lalum. But first what I need to do is use the second rescue staff use to get Corel perfectly in range, or well, not perfectly in range of the throne right now. And now he seizes here. And now I need to burn more RNs, because that's not the only throne I'm seizing this turn. Yoder now needs to crit and kill, or so crit and hit this Manakee on a 1% crit. It's actually possible for that Manakee to roll enough luck for me to not have crit, so I had to rig his luck down. But now, Milady can kill this Manakee that's in the way. Her dodging that is, like, seems nice, but it actually didn't matter in the slightest. And now, I must Bard Train to Corel. I also have to do, though, this really wacky trade chain with the Bard Train. I bring the rescue staff from Clarine to Yoder, which is a fairly intuitive thing to do, given that I moved Yoder further forward than Clarine. Now I dance and seize again. I click the Wormslayer because I do not want to waste Binding Blade uses on these Manakees that do not matter. Dian moves, but you know, most of his work for the map is sadly over after he killed that first Manakee. So now I have to burn more RNs in order for Elfin to dodge a hit from this Manakee that spawns on top of me. Lalum, because she dodged the Manakee on turn 1, can survive that hit. It's good. I'm glad I did that because rigging both of them to dodge here would have been a pain. And now, we have 3 down and 4 to go. Again, Milady dodges a counterattack, but for a reason you're about to see, that does not matter. So first, I use the last rescue staff use to get Corel in range of this throne without a dance. And Yoder level caps and is the only unit to do so in this run. Now, Zeiss full moves, but he doesn't really get to do anything. And then Clarine is going to use the Fortify Staff. Fortify could have sold for a pretty meaty amount of money, but since I really wasn't pressed for boots that much, I figured I might as well save the rigging it would take to not need it here. This full heals Lalum, which means she can now take one hit from a Manakete once more, and it puts Milady nearly full health as well. So, meaning her previous dodges / crits didn't truly matter in the slightest. It's good that Lalum is behind Elephant here, because another Manakete's going to spawn there. Zeiss, after being danced, can kill the one occupying this throne, and now Corel seizes. But noticing that Clarine still has an action, I full remove her with her all 15 move, trade the Binding Blade to the Corel's inventory just for the better bulk, and warp him so that he can enemy phase the Manakete on the 5th throne. I burn a few RNs here just because Clarine and Corel's survival is a little sketchy. So Corel cleanly kills this Manakete since the Binding Blade has a hilarious 18 might that is tripled. And he gets blank levels since he's capped everything. Lalum takes a hit from this Manakete. And this Manakete luckily goes for Yoder instead of Clarine, which means that he can counterattack with Aureola. And now the other Manakete goes for Clarine. She survives and destroys him with Forblaze in return. Corel just needs to dodge one, which he does right here. But he managed to dodge another, which didn't really matter too much, since he doesn't actually have to face any more enemy face combat. So first, Milady just moves right there so that she can be picked up by Zeiss. Now, I want to be able to drop Milady after taking her, but first, I use this, the second to last warp staff use, to warp both of the two Wyvern Riders over there so that they can deal with the final throne. Then, it's time for the last Elfin Fairy of the run. Clarine picks him up, and now it's time to have the dancers bring Yoder over to where he can help out with the 6th throne. First, I seize the 5th throne, though, and now I can put Yoder in range of this Manakete so that he can get it out of the way on enemy phase. Again, Diane just kind of hangs out here, kills this Manakete. And I have to get another lucky dodge here because this Manakete spawns on top of me. Luckily I do, and Clarine survives. Clarine caps magic here. Not that it matters, but it's fun. And now Yoder, taking another hit, kills this Manakete. And now Corel is in range to kill this Manakete, which lets him seize this throne after being danced the first time. And now it's time to seize the final throne. But given that I have another dancer and a final warp staff use, it turns out I can actually seize the 7th throne on the 5th turn. First, I have to kill this Manakete that's in Zeiss's way of the boss, which Milady is able to do. Unfortunately, she does not cap defense, but it is what it is. And Zeiss can defeat the final boss of this map, at least, with Durandal, with shaky-ish hit rate because of throne bonuses, but he gets it and gets his final level up. And now it's time to break the warp staff and seize. that is Chapter 24 in 5 turns. Now let's move on to Endgame. This part, well, it's a joke, because Idun is weak to the Binding Blade, so Karel can one-rounder. But for style points, I decided to rig a crit and do it from 2 range, because it's just a way to add insult to injury to how much of a joke this boss is. And that's our journey. Final map completed in 1 turn, obviously. And now we get the good ending. Yay! So I only got a couple questions to answer in this for these final cutscenes. So we're probably not gonna get to last through the whole thing. But as they're questions that I felt like I had to think about a little bit, I'll have a fairly long answer to all of them. The first question is, what unit was surprisingly useful in this run? Who was the opposite? My answer to that is that FE6 RR is not really structured. It's structured in a way where it just kind of front loads all the units you want to use, especially in a 100% growth setting. A lot of your early mounted units have really high base stats anyway. So you have no real reason to look for some sleeper pick that would compensate for weaknesses you may have. That sounds abstract as heck, but the point is, like, if a unit like Dian or Zeiss joins in the first couple maps of the game, and I'm rigging their growths to hell and back like I did for this run, then would I really have any reason to use any really random niche units like, I don't know, Nime, or like some rando that joined in the Western Isles? I sadly just don't. So I can't say there was any unit that was like individually a surprisingly useful unit. But I can say that there were some traits of units that should have been used in a run like this that I felt like I slept on and then was later pleasantly surprised by. And I think the prime suspect for that category would be Elfin and his bodying away from ferrying useful units con. Being able to ferry Clarine and Yoder and even Rutger for recruiting Ellen was actually stupidly useful. So I guess I'd give a half credit answer for this question to Elfin. Now, as for who was the opposite, again, a lot of units really just didn't do anything in this run because all my good units were very front-loaded and joined within the first few maps, besides, like, the Dancers and Clarine. But they don't really... I mean, they're the exception, not the rule. The next question is this easier or harder than vanilla FE6 100%? I think the answer to that is this is 20 times easier. I can think of about 3 reasons why. The first is the aforementioned good units are very front-loaded. So, like, to be working with Zeiss, who has 11 strength, as opposed to Shanna, who has 4 strength, that's a pretty big upgrade. Or compare, like, Percival and RR, who has 10 strength and speed, to base Christmas Calves. It's pretty hilarious how, like, a lot of corresponding units just join with, like, overwhelming leads compared to vanilla counterparts. And ultimately, because I'm rigging growths, the fact that they have worse growths doesn't really show at all. That's the first reason. The second reason is that I don't have to do anything wacky with bolting like you do in vanilla with Lena, where you grind her up for like 9 years so that she can crit Murdoch to death to 3-turn Chapter 21. Because my best boss killer is Karel and I have 2 dancers who effectively act as an again staff for the second dance, for those who are familiar with FE3 and FE12, where you can just give a unit another action from anywhere on the map effectively. I don't really have to worry about any janky units that would later pay off. So that's another reason why it's easier, since I just have to worry about feeding Corel, which is beneficial to me anyway since he's my lord. So to have a lord that can also boss kill just makes my life easier, period. The third reason is that I get a free warper in Yoder. In vanilla, you have to mess around with Saul's staff rank and get him to level 10 in time, and then like send him through the arena in chapter 11, and then he's still not quite at the magic he needs to be to one turn chapter 14x and similar clears. Whereas here, Yoder caps magic and then some in the arena because I'm double dancing him on that map on chapter 11a. And because he's seeing so much combat, his like baseline magic already was much higher than Saul's. Combined with the fact that I don't have to fast man at all because he joins with A staffs. So yeah, ultimately, the only thing that's harder about this is Corel, who is a pain to like feed kills to, but that's pretty much over in chapter 7. And, you know, the early game is still much easier than it is in vanilla because of better early game units such as Dian or Zeiss or something. Just like base stats in this NRR are just much higher because the growths that you're using to D-level are so low. So yeah, TLDR, which I'm terrible at doing, this is much, much easier. The next question is, am I glad I did full recruitment? This question was, the inspiration, I'm sure, is the fact that some have seen me complain about the Western Isles arc in this run. I'd say I'm very glad I did full recruitment because it just makes, like, it makes everything a lot simpler since I'm working with a max range warper in the post-warp section of the game, and I do have some leeway to just do some really stupid shit like grinding a unit from E to S swords in like 7 chapters, or yeah, that's the main one. So I'm glad I did full recruitment because of what it enabled for the latter half of the game, like i.e. the post-warp section of the game, even if it made the Western Isles part of the game extremely boring. And a follow-up to this same question is, what would incomplete recruitment look like? I actually don't think it would be that different. I think it's possible to actually, one might skip Milady in incomplete recruitment. I never actually took the time to examine what the turn counts would look like on some of the maps that are obviously turn floored. But you'd probably skip Milady, and you'd also no longer have time to get Zeiss to Durandal, since you don't have time to just fuck around in the Isles anymore. So you'd probably use Percival as a Durandal user for the very end of the game, and then Zeiss would just use Malte like Milady was. Maybe, like, the additional flyer matters, like, since having 4 flyers is pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'd say those would be the things to watch out for. Mainly a different Durandal user and possibly the absence of Milady. And obviously a lot of Western Isles randos would be no longer present, and my effective warp range would be not as high, which would probably cost in maps like 14x, where I just straight up warp across the map to get the 1-turn clear. Beyond that, though, I can't really think of many places where where incomplete recruitment is a huge game changer. Aside from, like, it's more the fact that I'm not reaching benchmarks that I was in the leniency of full recruitment. And yeah, that's the end of our questions for today. But I figured since I have time left over, I should do a little bit of reflection on the run, I guess, what went into the run for me. I'm very new to, like, actually racking my brain and doing a more formal run like this, or either LTC or maybe, you know, even or more reliable context like efficiency. So this was like a nice, like, starting point for me, since it's a category that no one else has really, like, explored. I mean, well, I guess, correction. there is an incomplete run of a different patch of FE6 RR, which gave me the inspiration for using Elfincon. But like ultimately, FE6 RR was very much up for grabs. And because I like FE6 a lot, I just like the money management that goes into it, and the stupidity of having a bunch of 15 move units in the late game. I figured, might as well. This will be a game I won't get sick of. And I felt like, especially some of the later maps, like 22 and 24 especially, I felt like I was really pushing what my capabilities as a player were to the limits, and well, having fun along the way. And that's really what matters for a playthrough like this. It's obviously lovely to share it for others to see, and ideally others enjoy watching my run as much as I enjoyed making it. With this project behind me, I'll probably be looking towards some other, I have other projects planned, but I don't really know when I'm actually gonna get around to them. But I guess I should probably run them off for any of those that are interested, keeping up with my whatever I'd be putting out. The first one of two that I'd really be looking at right now. One is like just a general efficiency playthrough, so more reliable, unlike this run, of Radiant Dawn, with using a full transfers file that speedruns generally use, because I feel like that's a very rigged transfers context are explored to hell and back, like with Cheeky's run, but reliable transfers is not really explored that much. So that's something that is kind of on the table for me. And then the other, which is another fairly underexplored category, is lowest displayed turn count of Sacred Stones, Fire Emblem 8, which would involve grabbing a bunch of boots from the Tower of Valny and running around with 15 move, starting in Chapter 9. It's as stupid as it sounds, which is why no one else has really done it yet. So if you're keeping tabs on what I put out at all, community of interest, which I know is very small, look forward to the potential for those. And finally, I figured I'd go back to a reflection on where I think this run could be improved. I'm probably going to upload chapter fixes, to at least demonstrate, the proofs of concept of what I'm thinking the improvements could be. But that'll be at a later date, and I do not plan on making promises on when that'll be. The first is a 3-turn of Chapter 8X. I genuinely just blundered on that. Arissa pointed out to me that you can actually quite easily just ram Zeiss forward and dance him more times than I did in the 4-turn clear, and get him to drop curl in range of the throne, or at least drop curl in range of being danced for the throne before turn 3. So that's one. The other is a 6-turn of Chapter 3. I complained about reaching reasonable survival benchmarks for Chapter 5, but I'm pretty sure you can still get there in Chapter 4. I really underestimated how lenient Chapter 4 was. So ultimately a 6-turn of Chapter 3 in tandem with a 3-turn of Chapter 5. That's very much doable. The final would be, I have to rack my brain, which I mentioned in the description of Chapter 13, a potential 3-turn of that map. I do not know if that's possible, but ultimately this means that while this run was completed in 120 turns, RR full recruitment turn floor is either 118 or 117. Let me speed up the remainder of this credits so that we can get to the turn counts. So 1 and 2 are the same as they are in vanilla. 3 is 2 longer, but can probably be improved. 4 is the same, 5 is the same, 6 is the same, 7 is the same, 8 is 2 faster, 8x is 1 faster but should be 2 faster, 9 is 1 faster, 10, 11, and 12 are the same because of full recruitment. 12x, 13, 14 are all 1 faster. 14x is the same. 15 is the same because of full recruitment. 16 is 1 faster. 16x is the same. 17 is the same, but it saves a warp use. 18 and 19 are 1 faster. 20 is the same because of full recruitment. 20x is the same. 21 saves a turn. 21x is the same. 22 saves a turn. 23 is the same. And 24 saves 2 turns. And obviously final's the same. And oh yeah, look at this hilarious rank. Yeah, look at my... I mean, yeah, it looks good, and then I get E, C, and D. So for a total of B, but that's to be expected because ranks are jank. And here's the remainder of the units endings, but I don't plan on showing that. I think that's the end. So thank you for everyone who stayed on this weird and very improvised ride on my end. And if you're looking forward to something I have to put out later, I'm honored. And I will see you next time. Peace out.